Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Evidence, and in today's video I am going to be showing you how to add SSH to Windows Subsystem for Linux for BitBucket. So in the previous video I showed you how to add SSH for BitBucket to your regular Windows computer, but this video will be focused on Windows Subsystem for Linux, which is WSL. And in the previous videos, I showed you how to add SSH to your Windows computer on GitHub and how to add SSH to Windows Subsystem for Linux on GitHub. So make sure to check out those videos. So to add SSH to your Windows Subsystem for Linux using BitBucket, I'm gonna show you. You just go here and go to Personal Settings. And once you're here, you go to SSH keys. And as you can see right here, I have one SSH key set up for my regular Windows computer. But based on my experience, I believe this SSH key I have set up for my regular Windows computer is not going to work for Windows Subsystem for Linux for BitBucket. So with that being said, let me go ahead and get started with this tutorial. So first we are gonna clone this repo right here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open Linux. So this is my Linux environment. I'm using Ubuntu for my Windows Subsystem for Linux. And right here, I'm just gonna go into my folder and I'll try to clone this, and I'll kind of show you cloning this using HTTPS versus using SSH in Windows Subsystem for Linux. And then we are gonna add an SSH key to BitBucket and then also show you the difference so that you'll be able to see what's going on. So as you can see here in this folder, I only have one folder called Docker Tutorials. We are gonna clone this repo into that folder. So let's start by doing HTTPS. So if we do HTTPS here, if we go ahead and copy this and clone using HTTPS and enter. As you can see, we successfully cloned the repo using HTTPS, but we are going to run into a problem when we try to re-upload the repo. It's going to ask for our username and password for BitBucket, and I'm going to show you what I mean here in a second. Let's go ahead and open this repo in VS Code, make some changes, and try to re-upload it. And this is why we need to set up SSH in the first place. All right, so this is the README. I'll go ahead and delete this and click on save. And just like that, I've modified this README. Now let's try to re-upload these changes back to BitBucket. And like I said, we are going to run into an error. So from here, I'm gonna do cd. And then I'm just gonna do get status. As you can see, I've modified the README file. And let's go ahead and do get add, get commit, message, deleted some files from README. Now, moment of truth, right? So let's do git push upstream origin master. So now in this situation, it's gonna ask me for the password for my BitBucket. All right. And this is Windows Subsystem for Linux. If you're trying to use HTTPS, you have to enter your BitBucket password every time. Alright, so by entering my BitBucket password, I was able to use HTTPS to make changes to my BitBucket repo from Windows Subsystem for Linux. And if you look right here, I'm just gonna refresh the page and that should disappear. As you can see, that code has disappeared. So that is how you use HTTPS, right? You have to enter your BitBucket password all the time. So now what about SSH, right? So like I showed you earlier, I already have SSH set up for my Windows computer, not for Windows Subsystem for Linux. So if we go ahead and let's say delete this repo and do the same process all over again. So but this time we are going to clone using SSH. We are going to get an error. We should get an error, right? Because Windows Subsystem for Linux is not set up to have SSH communication with BitBucket. So now that we are here again, let's go ahead and paste this code. Now it's asking if I want to trust BitBucket, and I'm gonna say yes, but it's gonna say access denied. As you can see right here, it says permission denied. We don't have the permission to use SSH to communicate with BitBucket, and this is why we need to set up SSH connection. So with that being said, let's go ahead and set up SSH connection to BitBucket. And to do it is very simple. This is the instructions right here. And to get to these instructions, you can just click on this, go to personal settings and SSH keys. And as you can see, generate an SSH key. When you click on it, this page will show up. And of course, I'm going to add this page to the description below too. So in the previous videos, I showed you how to add do SSH for Windows for BitBucket. This one is going to be focused on SSH for Mac OS/Linux. The instructions are very similar, but with a few tweaks in the code. So to add SSH, you begin by writing this code SSH keygen. And here we are just gonna paste that code. And then here it tells you the location of your SSH file. So you have to pay attention to this and make sure you know the folder where your SSH files are going to be saved. You can enter a different folder path, but I'm just gonna use the default here. I'm gonna press enter. And here you can create a key phrase. You can leave this empty to not have any passphrase for your SSH, which means whenever you use SSH, you don't have to enter your passphrase, but I always create a passphrase for security reasons. So that's my SSH passphrase, and I'm going to enter it again. And just like that, we just created an SSH file. So if you look at the output here, it tells you your private SSH is in this folder, and this is the file name for your private SSH. And your public SSH is in this folder, and this is the file name for your public SSH. All right. So now the next step is we are going to copy the content of this public SSH. And to do that, you can use the cat command. So you can do something like cat idrsa.pub. So first I want to navigate to this folder. It will just make it easier to do the following commands, right? So I'm just gonna do cd /.ssh. And basically this tilde means go to the home directory, and my home directory is home/evidence_n, and inside home/evidence_n there is a folder called .ssh. So we're gonna do ls, and as you can see right here, this is the IDRSA private key that was just created, and this is the public key, and this is the SSH files that were created for my GitHub. Like I said in the previous video, I showed you how to set up SSH for Windows Subsystem for Linux for GitHub. These are those files, and this is the ones that's recently created for BitBucket. And yes, so the SSH files for GitHub is not gonna work for BitBucket, and one for BitBucket is not gonna work for GitHub. So for every repo service that you're using, you need to set up a new SSH file, because this SSH public key has to kind of like authenticate with the private key. Okay, and this public key cannot authenticate with this private key. That is why it's not like interchangeable. So a new SSH files for every repo service that you have and every environment that you have, basically. So if you have Linux, you gotta set up one. If you have regular Windows, you have to set up one too. Now we can use the cat command to copy the content of our public SSH. So in this case, I'm just gonna do cat id rsa.pub. Okay, so basically, if you are in any other folder other than this .ssh folder, make sure you type out this whole thing. But since I'm already in the .ssh folder, I don't have to type out everything here. I can just do cat open this file in this folder. And these are the contents of this file right here. Okay, so this is one way to open it. Another way to open it is to also use VS Code. So you could do code id rsa.pub, and the same thing opens in VS Code. All right, so go ahead and copy it. You can copy it from VS Code or you can copy it from the command line. It's up to you. So once you've copied the contents of your public SSH file, you go back to BitBucket, you click on add key, and then you paste it right here. For me, I like to give descriptive names to my SSH keys because I have a Samsung desktop, a Dell laptop, and I have Windows Subsystem for Linux, and then I have like regular Windows command prompt. And each one of those systems and environments and computers have their own SSH keys. All right. So I like to give descriptive names so that if I need to make changes to my SSH keys, I can correctly identify the environment and the computer I'm making changes to. So in this situation, I'll just call this Samsung WSL Windows. All right. And then you do add key. All right. So now you've added the public key for your Windows subsystem for Linux. Now you have to do this next step. The next step is to add the private key to your SSH agent. All right, so basically adding private key to your SSH agent allows you to more easily communicate with BitBucket, so that whenever you're doing operations using BitBucket, your private key can kind of do a handshake with your public key on BitBucket. All right. So before we can add our private key to our SSH agent, we just have to first verify that our SSH agent is running. And to do that, we are going to start the SSH agent. And this is the code right here to start the SSH agent. And we're just going to paste it, eval SSH agent. And then we get this response. This means that our SSH agent is active. All right. So now if you're on Linux, this is the code you're gonna use to add your SSH key. And as you can see here, you don't need to type all of this out if you're already in the SSH folder like me. But if you are in any other folder that is not the .ssh folder, then you need to type out everything here. So in this case, I'm just gonna do SSH add, and I'm gonna do ID RSA. So in this situation, I'm adding my private key to my SSH agent. And then it's going to ask me for my passphrase. Remember the passphrase that you said earlier? It's going to ask you for that. And now it says that this private key for my BitBucket has been added to my SSH agent. All right. And that's basically it. So just to recap real quick, first you do SSH key gen to generate a new key. You add the public key to BitBucket, and then you add the private key to your SSH agent. And now we are gonna test it to make sure the system works, or what we set up works. So I'm just gonna do cd. I'll copy all of this. And we are back on this folder, and I deleted the handy code scripts folder. So we're gonna clone it again, but this time we're gonna use SSH. So let's go to repos. So this time we're gonna do clone, and this time we're gonna use SSH again, and we're gonna copy this, and we are gonna go here and right click, enter, and it successfully copied it using SSH. So if you remember earlier here, when I tried to copy using SSH, it gave me an error. It says permission denied, right? But now that I've added the SSH key, I was able to successfully copy from BitBucket using SSH. Now I'm gonna make a few changes to this code and try to upload it back to BitBucket. So let's just do cd all right, so let's add code. Let's say all right, so we modified this file. Let's go ahead and go back to WSL and let's do get status. As you can see, the readme file has been modified. Let's go ahead and do get add, get commit message, and now this is the moment of truth, right? So right now we are gonna try to push our changes back to BitBucket and see what happens. And remember, the connection is using SSH because we cloned using SSH here. So now let's do get push upstream origin master. And that worked like a charm. Okay, so remember the first time when we did it with HTTPS, when we pushed to HTTPS, we had to enter our BitBucket password, right? But now that we're using SSH, we can push to BitBucket without entering our BitBucket password. So our SSH works basically. And that's it in a nutshell of how to add SSH to Windows Subsystem for Linux for BitBucket. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And please share this video with anyone else that might find it interesting. And while you are here, you can visit me online at evidencen.com. That's my primary website. We have my data science blogs and I have other resources. And as time goes by, I'm going to add more and more stuff to my data science blog. And you can also click on free data science resources. And when you click on it, it will bring you to this page, machinelearningeducation.com/free. And this is where I have different resources, and it's also where I have my newsletter. So every single week, I try to send out email letting people know what content I created the previous week. And also, when I create data science YouTube videos, I have a lot of resources like notebooks, I have job search resources, data set, all of that is also in here in this platform. So consider joining us at machinelearningeducation.com/free. And also you can support my work by going to machinelearningeducation.com. I'm also going to put this link in the description below. And here you can support my work however way you see fit. No pressure at all. And that's at machinelearningeducation.com. And if you come here to machinelearningeducation.com and you don't see this page, rest assured I'm gonna put it somewhere up here on my website menu. So that's machinelearningeducation.com to kind of support my work directly if you like this video. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.